And we have some news out of California, guys. That's the state that is losing $160 million in federal funding after missing the deadline to revoke more than 17,000 commercial driver's licenses. That's on top of the $40 million already being withheld because the state wasn't enforcing English proficiency requirements for truckers. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy writing in part, our demands were simple, follow the rules.
Good evening, Patriots. Welcome back to Harlan Reports, the only place where the truth burns bright and the heart of America beats louder than ever. Before we get started, I need to ask you a favor, a big one. Please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with everyone you know. The mainstream media won't tell you this, they are hiding it. But you deserve to know. Every mom, every dad, every grandparent in this country needs to hear what I am about to say. Because it is about our children, our money, and the man who is saving us all.
After what's been exposed with the daycares in Minnesota, I'm a licensed private investigator in California. I started looking into state records and I found ghost daycares. These are places where the state inspectors showed up. There would be 28 kids enrolled and there were no kids there in the middle of the day and in the middle of the week.
All right, so a ghost daycare. Is that something Gavin Newsom could say, all right, we'll try to shut that down? Does he cooperate when you start raising this?
No, in fact, today it got word from the governor's office. There's been a directive to actually shut down public access. So right now you can't even search the own state website to look into these ghost daycares, but I have found a workaround.
Okay, well, we don't want to tell the governor that you found a workaround, but it does sound like he's trying to cover his tracks, like this is a cover-up.
We're talking about billions of dollars in California. Today in New York, Kathy Hochul, she said she wants to increase child care subsidies to $4.5 billion. We're talking about the same amount in California, if not even more.
From Minnesota and from the United States. It's actually more from the United States because Minnesota puts in, and we're not going to pay it anymore. We're going to have Waltz go pay. We're not going to pay them, and we're not going to pay California, and we're not going to pay Illinois with that big slob of a governor that they have that doesn't run. We brought down crime by 25%. He didn't do anything. He's not doing anything. But they want us to leave. He had a day where they had 17 murders not too long ago. 17 murders. And 77 people shot, but 17 died. And then he talks about, we can handle it. He can't handle it. But we pull back, and we'll go in at the appropriate time. But we're the ones that brought the crime down. We brought it down 20%. They didn't bring it down. Pritzker didn't bring it down. Same thing with Gavin Newsom.
Folks, I have to be honest with you tonight. I came into the studio with a heavy heart. I've been sitting here looking at the papers on my desk, and I've been fighting back tears. We try to be tough, don't we? We try to be strong for our families. But sometimes something happens that just breaks you down because it is so cruel, and yet the justice is so beautiful. We are talking about California tonight. We are talking about Governor Gavin Newsom. For a long time, we suspected things were wrong over there, but we never knew how bad it truly was until now. Imagine a daycare center. Close your eyes and picture it. You expect to hear little feet running, right? You expect to hear babies giggling, playing with blocks, learning their ABCs. You expect to see tired but happy teachers hugging those little ones. That is what America is supposed to be. But in California, under Newsom's watch, there was only silence. Dead silence. They call them ghost daycares. It sounds like a spooky story, doesn't it? But it is real. These were buildings with empty rooms, no toys on the floor, no cribs warm with sleeping babies, just dust and emptiness. But here is the part that makes me want to cry with rage. While those rooms sat empty, millions and millions of your tax dollars, money you worked hard for, money you sweated for, was flowing into them. It was like a river of cash going into a black hole. Newsom and his people let this happen. They let fake centers claim they were caring for hundreds of children who didn't exist. They took money meant for a single mom in Detroit or a struggling dad in Ohio, and they sent it to these ghosts. Think about that. Think about the mom I met last week who was crying because she couldn't afford childcare to go to her job. She wanted to work, she wanted to provide, but she couldn't. And all this time, millions of dollars were being stolen by people pretending to care for kids who weren't even there. It breaks your heart. It makes you feel helpless. It feels like the bad guys were winning, laughing at us while they took everything. But folks, hold on to your hope, because the story doesn't end in the dark. Someone was watching. Someone who loves you and loves this country more than life itself was watching. And he decided that the days of stealing from our children are over.
California Congressman Kevin Kiley, he is sounding the alarm in his home state, saying under Governor Gavin Newsom's leadership, it has become the, quote, fraud capital of America.
And we have team coverage. Our national correspondent Alana Austin is on Capitol Hill with more on the investigations into Tim Walz. But we start with correspondent Heather Myers, who has more on what is going on in California. A rainy day out there on the West Coast. Heather, what can you tell us?
Well, good afternoon to you, Katrina and Andrew. This latest report was issued by the state auditor, and that's a nonpartisan position. That state auditor now puts 8 state agencies on the high-risk list of agencies to watch out for things like fraud and mismanagement as well as waste. Here's a look at that 92-page report. Newly added to the high-risk list is California's food stamp program. If the state doesn't get the improper payments under control, it could cost an extra $2.5 billion. Also on there is the Department of Finance, which was tasked with giving out COVID relief funds. Critics say $32 billion of that was taken by fraudsters. Then there are infrastructure issues like California's deteriorating dams and also the high-speed train that's already cost taxpayers $18 billion without a single section of track complete. Other reports cite $24 billion spent on the homeless issue that critics claim the state lost track of. More recently, there's a report that says California cell phone users paid a surcharge for years to upgrade the state's 911 system. Here's Congressman Kevin Kiley talking about what happened to that plan.
That after spending $650 million on that system, the state is totally scrapping it and starting over, completely wasted the money because the technology doesn't work. Mind you, we are very close to Silicon Valley in Sacramento, and yet the government can't figure out how to make basic technology perform.
Folks, if the empty rooms weren't bad enough, what happened next is the part that really makes your blood boil. You might be asking yourself, Harlan, how does a governor let this happen? How do you lose millions of dollars to places that don't even have kids? Well, the sad truth is, it wasn't just a mistake. It looks like a trick, a big, ugly trick played on the people of California and on every single American taxpayer. You see, when good people started asking questions, when they started wondering why the money was gone but the help wasn't there, Governor Newsom didn't open the doors and let the sunlight in. No, he slammed them shut. Think about when you were a kid, and maybe you broke a vase or spilled some juice on the carpet. You knew you were in trouble, so maybe you tried to hide the pieces or cover the stain with a rug. That is exactly what happened here, but on a massive scale. Newsom and his team actually changed the websites where parents go to look for safe daycares. They made it harder for moms and dads to see the bad records. They disabled the search tools that let you check if a place was safe or if it was one of these ghosts. It was like they turned out the lights so no one could see the mess on the floor. Why would they do that? Why would they hide the truth from families who are just trying to survive? It feels like a betrayal of the worst kind. These parents trusted their leaders to keep them safe, to be honest. But instead, they got secrets. They got smoke and mirrors. While families were struggling to pay for gas and groceries, the people in charge were busy sweeping dirt under the rug, hoping you wouldn't notice the lump. It makes you feel small, doesn't it? It makes you feel like the people in charge didn't care if you were safe, as long as they looked good. But secrets have a way of coming out, especially when you have a president who isn't afraid of the dark. Donald Trump saw right through the fog. He saw the parents searching for answers and finding nothing but blocked websites and hidden files. And that is when the sadness turns into something else. It turns into a demand for justice. Because hiding the truth from the American people, that is a mistake you do not want to make when Donald Trump is watching. He knows that sunlight is the best disinfectant. And folks, He was about to bring a spotlight so bright that no shadow could hide these lies anymore. The cover-up was about to crumble, and the real story was about to begin. You know, for a while there, it felt like the bad guys were winning. It felt like the people in the high towers looking down on us thought they were untouchable. They thought they could take the money, hide the records, and just keep smiling for the cameras while families suffered. It brings a tear to my eye just thinking about the arrogance of it all. They thought because they had fancy titles and big offices, they were safe. They thought no one was strong enough to stop the stealing. They forgot one thing. They forgot that we have a fighter in the White House. They forgot about Donald Trump. When the president heard about this, about the ghost daycares, the hidden files, the money vanishing into thin air, he didn't call a meeting. He didn't ask for a committee to study it for 2 years while more money disappeared. No, sir, that is not the Trump way. That is the old way, the broken way. President Trump looked at that $160 million check that was about to go to California, and he reached for his pen. My friends, in a moment that will go down in history, he didn't just pause it, he didn't just ask questions, he cut it. Slash, gone, instantly. Think of it like this. Imagine a kid who keeps stealing cookies from the jar, and every time you ask him, he lies and hides the crumbs. You don't keep filling the jar, do you? No, you take the jar away. That is exactly what President Trump did. He looked at Gavin Newsom and said, not one more penny. He bypassed all the lawyers, all the slow-moving bureaucrats who wanted to talk and talk. He went straight for the wallet. He stopped the flow of cash right at the source. It was a financial hammer drop that shook the ground all the way from DC to Sacramento. And let me tell you, the sound of that silence, the silence of the money stopping, was music to the ears of every hardworking American. It was the sound of justice. It was the sound of a leader saying, I value your sweat and your labor too much to let thieves take it. When that news broke, when we learned that the $160 million was safe, I saw grown men weep with relief. I saw mothers hug their children a little tighter because for the first time in a long time, it felt like the good guys struck back. It felt like someone finally stood up and said, you cannot rob the American people anymore. The party was over for the fraudsters, and the lights were coming on. Trump didn't just send a message, he sent a shockwave. And folks, he was just getting started. But here is the thing about a true hero. He doesn't just stop the crime, he makes sure the criminals can never do it again. Cutting the money was the first punch, but the knockout blow was coming. And it was coming fast. While Newsom and his team were likely scrambling, trying to figure out how to spin this, trying to call their friends in the media to complain, they heard a knock at the door. And it wasn't a polite knock. It was the knock of the law. It was the knock of the United States of America coming to take back what belongs to the people. Just hours after the funding was slashed, federal agents walked into the state records office. Now, picture this scene. These weren't politicians in fancy suits making deals. These were serious men and women. Patriots with badges, sworn to uphold the Constitution. They marched right past the secretaries, right past the excuses, and straight to the file cabinets. They didn't ask please. They demanded the truth. They started pulling boxes, seizing hard drives, and securing the evidence that had been hidden in the dark for so long. Can you imagine the panic in that room? For years, these bureaucrats sat in their comfortable chairs thinking they were the kings and queens of California. They thought they could laugh at us. They thought they could take money meant for starving children and use it for who knows what. But in that moment, when the feds walked in, their faces must have turned white as ghosts. The arrogance vanished. The fear set in. Because they realized for the first time in their lives that they were not in charge anymore. The American people were in charge, and Donald Trump was our voice. Watching the reports of this raid come in, I just had to sit back and wipe my eyes. It's overwhelming, isn't it? To see actual consequences. We are so used to seeing the bad guys get away with it. We are so used to hearings that go nowhere and reports that get buried. But this was action. This was the steady, unstoppable march of justice. It reminds you of the old days, when right was right and wrong was wrong. Seeing those agents carry out box after box of evidence, it makes you want to stand up and cheer through your tears. The jig is up. The secrets are out. And Newsom's house of cards is falling down. My friends, if you listen closely, you can almost hear the sound coming from the governor's mansion in California right now. It isn't the sound of confident speeches or fancy parties anymore. No, what you are hearing is the sound of pure panic. You are hearing the scrambling of people who realize the free ride is finally over. For years, these politicians lived like kings while our schools crumbled and our prices went up. They thought the federal government was just a big ATM machine that would never stop spitting out cash, no matter how many rules they broke. But when those agents walked out with the boxes of evidence, the mood changed instantly. I have sources telling me that the phone lines in Sacramento are burning up. They are calling their lawyers, they are calling their donors, they are asking each other, what do we do now? But there is no answer, because you cannot talk your way out of this. You cannot spin your way out of empty rooms. And they're missing millions. President Trump has cornered them with nothing but the truth. It makes you tear up just thinking about the justice of it all. For so long, we felt like we were shouting into the wind. We saw the waste. We saw the corruption, and we felt so small because nobody listened. We watched our beautiful state of California turn into a place many folks had to flee just to survive. But today, the tables have turned. The people who ignored your pain are now the ones shaking in their boots. They're realizing that Donald Trump isn't just a president. He is a force of nature who remembers every forgotten American. And this panic they are feeling, it is a good thing. It means the system is starting to work again. It means that if you steal from the poor to give to the well-connected, you will be caught. It is a warning shot to every other politician in this country who thinks they can hide in the shadows. The light is on, the money is cut, and the excuses are gone. We are watching the end of an era of corruption and the beginning of a new day where the only thing that matters is the truth. And let me tell you, watching them scramble is the most satisfying thing I have seen in years. Folks, I want you to take a moment and really think about what $160 million looks like to the politicians in Sacramento. Maybe it's just a number on a spreadsheet. Maybe it's just play money that can move around to help their friends. But to you and me, to the families watching this program tonight, that money is everything. That money is milk in a baby's bottle. It is a warm blanket for a toddler during nap time. It is a safe playground where a little girl can swing without fear. When we talk about ghost daycares, it sounds almost harmless, like a fairy tale. But the pain it caused is real, and it is deep. Every single dollar that went to an empty building was a dollar stolen from a real child. Think about the little boy whose mom couldn't find a spot for him because the open daycare was a lie. Think about the dad who had to quit his job because he had nowhere to take his daughter. Those aren't just inconveniences. Those are stolen dreams. That is a family's future being crushed by greed. It brings tears to my eyes to think about the cruelty of it. How cold does your heart have to be to take food out of the mouths of babes? How arrogant do you have to be to build a fake empire on the backs of struggling families? They treated our children like they didn't matter. They treated them like they were invisible. And for a long time, under Newsom's shadow, they were invisible. The system was rigged to ignore them. But then came President Trump. He didn't see numbers. He saw the faces of those forgotten children. He saw the pain in the eyes of the parents, and he said, no more, when he ordered that raid and froze those funds. He wasn't just saving money. He was saving dignity. He was telling every single child in this country, you matter, you are real, and I will fight for you. That is the kind of love we have been missing in Washington for far too long. It is a love that protects the innocent and punishes the wicked. And tonight, as those records are being seized, I feel a sense of peace knowing that the ghosts are being chased away and the real children of America are finally being seen. You know, sometimes when you pull a loose thread on a cheap sweater, the whole thing starts to unravel. And that is exactly what is happening in California right now. We thought the $160 million was a huge amount of money. We thought that was the whole story. But President Trump, he is always 5 steps ahead of everyone else. He knew that the ghost daycares were just the tip of the iceberg. He knew that if they were stealing there, they were probably stealing everywhere. So get this, and this is the part that makes me want to stand up and salute with tears running down my face. He didn't just stop at the daycares. His administration looked at the mess Governor Newsom created. They looked at the rampant fraud, and they hit the pause button on over $10 billion. That is billion with a B. $10 billion of federal funds that were at risk of being wasted, stolen, or lost in the swamp of corruption. It makes you shiver, doesn't it, to think about how much of our treasure was flying out the window while we were pinching pennies at the grocery store. But it also makes you cry, tears of absolute joy. Why? Because finally, we have a guardian at the gate. We have a president who treats our tax dollars like they are sacred. He is telling these states, you don't get a blank check anymore. You have to prove you are helping American citizens. You have to show us the receipts. This isn't just a policy change, folks. This is a rescue mission. President Trump is rescuing our economy from thieves. He is rescuing our trust. For years, we lay awake at night wondering if anyone cared that the system was broken. We wondered if the corruption would just go on forever until there was nothing left for our grandkids. But today, with that massive $10 billion hold, Trump sent a message that rang out like a church bell across the land. The party is over for the corrupt, and the sun is rising for the honest. It is a new day, and America is finally getting clean again. I want to take you out of the halls of power for a moment and take you into the living rooms of real Americans. I want you to hear the voices that have been drowned out by the noise of corruption for too long. Since this news broke, since Trump dropped the hammer on this fraud, my inbox has been flooded. And I'm not talking about political messages, I'm talking about letters from the heart. I got an email this morning from a grandmother in Ohio named Martha. She wrote to me and said, Harlan, for years I watched my daughter struggle to find care for my grandbabies. We thought it was just bad luck. We never knew people were stealing the money meant to help us. When I saw President Trump take action, I just sat down and cried. I cried because finally, someone is fighting for my family. Can you feel that? That isn't just relief. It is vindication. It is the feeling of being seen after years of being invisible. It is the feeling of having a champion when you thought you were alone in the fight. Martha isn't a politician. She isn't a donor. She is just a grandmother who loves her family, and she knows that Donald Trump loves them too. He didn't have to do this. He could have ignored it like so many others, but he didn't. He fought for Martha. He fought for her daughter. He fought for all of us. This is what America First really means. It means putting Martha first. It means putting the Sarahs and the Toms and the forgotten families of this nation ahead of the bureaucrats and the fraudsters. It is a policy of love, a policy of protection. And hearing these stories, hearing the gratitude pouring in from every corner of this country, it breaks you down in the best possible way. It reminds you that we are not just a country of laws, we are a country of people, and right now our people are finally being heard. We all remember the promises, don't we? We remember the rallies, the speeches, the moments when Donald Trump looked into the cameras and told us he would drain the swamp. He told us he would stop the waste. He told us he would fight for the forgotten men and women of this country. And honestly, sometimes it's hard to believe politicians, isn't it? We've been burned so many times. We've been let down so many times. But this is different. This raid on Newsom's office, the slashing of the fraud funds, it is a promise kept in real time. It is proof that words matter to this president. He didn't just say he would protect our money. He is actually doing it right now while the world watches. He is showing us that integrity isn't dead. He is showing us that honor still has a place in the White House. And that feeling you have in your chest right now, that swelling of pride, that is because you know deep down that you voted for the right man. You know that when you cast your ballot for Trump, you were voting for moments like this. You were voting for a leader who would walk into the fire for you. It brings me to tears just thinking about the strength it takes to stand up to the entire corrupt system. But he does it every single day. He wakes up and fights for you. And today, with this victory in California, he has given us all a reason to believe. Again, a reason to hope, a reason to be proud to be Americans. As we come to the end of our time together tonight, I want you to hold on to this feeling. I want you to dry those tears of sadness and replace them with tears of pure joy. Because what happened in California, the slashing of that $160 million, the raiding of those hidden files, it isn't just a news story. It is the sunrise after a long, dark night. It is the proof that the storm is passing and the light of truth is breaking through. For so long, we worried about what kind of country we were leaving to our children. We worried that the cheaters would always win. But President Trump has shown us that the good guys are back in charge. He has shown us that the American dream isn't dead. It was just waiting for a leader brave enough to fight for it. Imagine the future we are building right now. Imagine a country where every dollar meant for a child actually goes to a child. Imagine a government that fears the people instead of the people fearing the government. That is the America Donald Trump is building. Brick by brick, victory by victory. It makes my heart so full it feels like it might burst. To live in a time where we have a champion who loves us this much. It is a blessing beyond words. We are witnessing history, my friends. We are watching the restoration of our great nation. So tonight, hug your kids a little tighter. Say a prayer of thanks, and sleep soundly knowing that the man in the White House is awake, standing guard over our freedom and our future. The best is truly yet to come. Thank you for being here with me for this incredible moment. Please do not let this story stop here. I need you to hit that subscribe button, click the like, and share this video with every patriot you know. We need to grow this movement. We need to spread the daily truth that the fake news tries to hide. Together, we are unstoppable. God bless you. God bless President Trump. And may God forever bless the United States of America. This is Harlan signing off. Stay strong.